Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Under Construction. I'm your host, Ellis, the Admiral. I'm your host, Admiral Ellis, or I am Admiral Ellis, or I am... I'll nail it down one of these days, I swear I will. I just don't know what it's going to be yet. Anyway, we're back in Mason's Landing, and we're probably going to be doing mostly the same stuff that we've been doing. We do have a couple of comments. Let me go over to them. Yeah, mostly the same stuff that we've been doing, just trying to get this place a little bit more ship-shape, a little bit better looking, than, I need a farmhouse out here, than, like, what it's been. So, shut up. You know what, let me grab one of these. Let me see if there's anything like this one. Gosh, that's loud. Okay. Farmhouse. Farm pack. No. Okay, I guess I don't have. It's my favorite mine. Let's see. Vecchi's store. I'll just put that at the end of the road. Anyway, so this episode, I'll say it right out, I'm recording it pretty late. Not just in the day, but in the span of time where we're supposed to be doing episodes. This is being recorded on a Saturday night, which is, I know, pretty heinous of me to not be recording at the right time. I know I should be recording at the proper time, but, I mean, I got home on... And forget about Friday night. Friday night was a mess. Today was also a mess, which I'll get to later. But Thursday, I just got home and I was just feeling kind of miserable, and I didn't really have much to talk about because nothing really like meaty or interesting had happened to me that I could talk about. Nothing had like sprung to mind that I could talk about. So I was just, I would have been grasping at straws here. There would have been a lot of me being particularly quiet, and that doesn't make for really good episodes. So, I decided, you know what, I'll put this off to Friday and do it, and have Madison on the show, maybe. And then Friday, I can't remember, Friday I screwed myself, because we were driving back from, we had to drop her car off at the mechanic, which I'll get to that more later. We were driving back, and she's like, we should do something tonight. And I was like, yeah, we should, why don't we have a fire in our fire pit? And she's like, yeah, it's a great idea. And so she starts, like, arranging that. And then, like, 20 minutes later, I go, but I gotta do Under Construction. Oh, well, I'll do it on Saturday, I guess, while you're at work. And now it is almost 9 o'clock. She gets out at 10:30. And that basically means that almost all of today has been a wash, which is unfortunate. I had so many things that I wanted to get done around the house that just didn't happen because of the general chaos of today. Today started out with me having to take her to work because, well, it started out with us hanging out, but me having to take her to work because she, like I said, her car is in the shop. So it was, that was a minor inconvenience, but really it wasn't bad because it got me out of the house. It got me down the road and over near where I used to live, where my dad and my stepmom lived, because that meant I could go and say hi to the guests that had come in from out of town. Friends of mine, or, well, relatives of mine, technically. In-laws, really. So, yeah, relatives, but not really relatives. It's my stepmother's relatives. So they were in town, and they stay at the house, and there are a couple great people. I love to hang out with them, and I just really wanted to come by and say hello, but also I really wanted to go and see the dog and the cats. So, there was an ulterior motive, absolutely, but at least I went, and I said hi to the dog and the cats, and also one of the visitors. So, that I did. Also, what is going on here? Why is this like this? Why is this like this? Oh, you know what? Let me drag that across the intersection there and straighten it, and maybe that will help us out a little bit. Yeah, I just need to get this squared away. Let's lower this. Oops, that's way too much. That's way too much. Anyway, whoa! Oh my god, stop doing that! This is part of the reason why I didn't want to bother with this, because look at it, it's being such a pain in the neck. I'll just put a spline point in the middle. Maybe that'll help. Why is it not moving? Oh. Every time you move the track, it updates all the tracks, so that's a little annoying. We will get this thing right. So anyway, I dropped her off, and then went to go say hi to the relatives, and the animals, and also my dad. Also, he bought me a sandwich, so that was nice. Jersey Mike's, I love it. The chicken bacon ranch cheesesteak, in case anyone's curious, I do believe that that is the best sandwich there. I'm of that opinion. And so I was coerced into visiting. And, I mean, I was happy to say hi, talk about the house and everything, because I hadn't seen them in a little while. And then I go to leave, and I had mentioned that my car was giving me some funny problems. I had no gauges again, which, kind of annoying. But it had happened a week ago, and they had come back the following day. This time they hadn't come back. So, I was figuring, okay, well, I guess they aren't gonna come back. I'll have to talk to my mechanic or whatever, but for now I can live with it as long as I just keep my gas topped up, because I have no gas gauge and no odometer because the speedometer doesn't work and it's based off of that. So I have to pay attention to that, but as long as I do that, I should be fine. You know, nothing should go wrong. I've got no reason to really have any concern. So I go into the car to leave, and it won't start. I'm like, son of a gun. I guess I do have reason for concern. So they both come out there after watching me fiddle with it for a while from the doorway. And they start banging on stuff and jiggling stuff and, like, doing everything in their power to like, see if they can get the car to come to life. And it's very rapidly proving them wrong and that they cannot do anything. So, I'm pretty done with the whole thing. I decided, well, I guess I'll just call my mechanic, which I don't like doing because it's Saturday. He doesn't work on Saturdays typically. So I call him up, I tell him what's going on. I had talked to him previously about this issue the previous week when it had happened, and he's given me a couple of troubleshooting ideas, and I do one of them and start the car, and it starts reluctantly. But I'm not completely convinced that that's what did it. At this point, I'm pretty sure he nailed it the first time I talked to him. He said he said it could be a bad ignition switch. And I was like, yeah, maybe. It seems like a bad ground to me, but they can really sort of be one and the same. But either way, I tell him, well, I'll trade cars with you on Monday. I can come by and pick up the other car that you've been working on, because he said he was almost done with it, and that he could get it wrapped up on Monday, and then I'll give you this one to work on. And he was like, sure, that works, in his way of speaking. And so I just decided, okay, I'll just drive home, and, hopefully the car will work later, or I'll have to borrow another car to go and pick up Madison from work, etc., etc. I get most of the way home, and I'm realizing that I'm not going to make it. I'm losing power, whatever, the engine it's basically dying on me. I know the feeling that it was giving me because I've felt that feeling before. It's when you're running out of battery, when you're running off of the battery. And so that means to me that the ignition switch did not tell the car that the car was running, and instead to use alternator power instead of battery power, and it had burned through the whole battery just running the car. The reason that hadn't happened previously is because I only ran it like that for one small trip, and then it came back, and then my battery's pretty new. It's got a lot of life in it. So there was, it wouldn't have given up the ghost on me that easily. It finally did on the off-ramp to US 6. I'm coming down the ramp, and I realized when I got on the ramp that I might not make it down, or the engine might give out on me. So I decided that I'd put it in neutral. And that meant that when the engine did die, the car didn't come to a grinding halt. I coasted all the way to the bottom of the ramp. And then I pulled over to the side with the momentum that I had. Also, I was on a downhill, so that helped. And, that was that. I called up AAA, they sent out a person, and that was that. He towed me by my house, which was nice of him, and then he took the car and sent it up to Tony, and left Tony a voicemail. So my entire day was pretty much screwed because of that. Because now we were down all three of our cars, and we still are, Madison and... Well, no, we're not, because I went and got the other one back. But I got hers back earlier today as part of an operation to make life suck a little bit less. Her dad had a pretty good plan as to how to orchestrate getting her car back from her mechanic down in South County. Actually, I'm not sure if that's technically South County or not, but whatever. Way down there. The place nobody really goes unless they have a reason to go there. Not because it's ghetto, just because it's, 20 minutes away, and there's no reason to go there. So, yeah, I was like, alright, well, this is bad. I'm down to 0 cars. I had to borrow a car to run this operation that her dad had planned. But it really just threw a wrench in the whole day, because I ended up spending much more time working on random car stuff than working on stuff at home, including this little home project that my dad and I did, which was to change the upstairs entrance, if you can call it that. It's at the top of the stairs. It's a piece of wood that folds down over the top of the stairs, so if you're up there, you can get some privacy. And it had, for basically ever, been just a piece of wood. But after a couple of unfortunate incidents regarding the piece of wood falling down the stairs, because, people were actually using that space again instead of ignoring it, which, and making it a storage space, which is what it was before I owned the house. And since, all the kids moved out, I decided that it was really important to put hinges on the thing. And so Dad came over, and we put hinges on the thing with some effort, but we managed to do it. And it's not great. There's a little gap there, but I have a solution, I have a plan to fix that gap. But I need to execute it. But this isn't that plan. This thing is, we attached the hinges and a handle with screws. The screws were just slightly too long for this flimsy, super thin piece of... I'm not even sure if you can call it wood. Now that I'm thinking about it. Either way, I decided that we really should have a... well, no, my dad said bolts. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll put bolts up there. I'll swap them out with bolts when I get the chance, because they're really sharp. I don't want anyone to get hurt on them. And so that was my goal for today, or at least one of them. And I didn't get to do it, but the reason it was so important for today is because yesterday I was carrying stuff up the stairs and I ripped my palm open on one of those screws. The one in particular that's the handle, that's sticking out, out farther than all the rest. So that spurred me to do that today. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen. Alright, so we're making this trolley terminal. I need chain link fence. How are we into this video already? Because it's gonna fly by, I'm telling you, and I'm not gonna be able to talk about all the things I want to talk about. We're already 15 minutes in, and what have I done? I drew this, Well, actually, I did do all this tram track, whatever. You know what I mean. All right, I can hold control to continue. I just want to get more scenery done here. I've really been enjoying doing this urban scenery. Or suburban, whatever you want to call it. And I won't say I'm looking forward to doing more of it, but it is what it is. This is not the chain link fence that I want. Honestly. Yeah, this is better. I should have just asset replaced that. Well, no, I wouldn't have been able to, because the other one up there is also there. I did the wrong thing. I need to hold control, not shift. So we orchestrated that plan. But that's not the thing that I was excited to talk about on Friday. See, the thing is, on Friday, I go into work, and I am, working on some things, and I take a little breather, and I look on Reddit, and I see the debate mega thread. And I'm like, wait, what? Because I didn't realize that the Democratic debates were on. I didn't know that they were happening. And so I have this moment of, oh, I need to catch up. And so I pulled up the debates online on YouTube. They had, NBC posted both of them. The one from the 27th and the one from the 28th. And I listened to the whole thing, start to finish, both of them. And I'll be honest, it actually, people talk about, the debates, they don't really change your mind very much because, a lot of people, they've already sort of made up their mind, or it's just sound bites. You don't get to hear people really talk about their platform, or really anything substantial. Definitely if you're undecided, particularly with primary candidates, the debates can matter a lot. And this is that, of course. This is the Democratic primary. So I cared very much. I wanted to hear people's platforms. I, of course, only knew 5 people because the primaries this year are kind of ridiculous and there's 1 million candidates. It's like how it was last year or not last year, but last election cycle, 2016, for the Republican primaries, except twice as bad. So, yeah, definitely the kind of thing where I'm in it because I want to understand more about who all these people are, and I also just kind of want to know their names, I want to know what their platforms are. I want to know who I'll like more. Of course, there isn't really too much chance of anyone but the big names getting the nomination. But some of the people have surprisingly good margins, looking on 538, which is the research I did afterward, part of the research. Some of these people have surprisingly good margins, and, oh, you know what I'm going to do over here? You know what I'm going to do? I am going to die. How come this isn't working? Instead of using this track, right? I'm gonna line this up, but then I'm gonna replace it. Because I think what I should do is actually make this area all pavement. And put a little maintenance building in here. Alright, so let's grab the right track for this. So, yeah, I wanted to understand. I wanted to know more about the candidates. Because, I mean, there's odds that, one of those people could be our president in the next, couple of years. Or, at the very least, one of those is going to appear on the ballot for the presidential election. And you're going to want to care who it is that they are. Unless you don't, I don't know. If you're already sold with Donald Trump, then you're sold with Donald Trump, I guess. But it's going to be the other person on the ballot is going to be one of those people. Nobody's really... There's one person, I think, running against Donald Trump in the Republican Party. But I don't think they're going to make that much of a splash because, let's be honest, how do you make a bigger splash than Donald Trump? Either way, it was like, okay, there are 20 people here, give or take. No, it is actually 20 people, isn't it? There are 20 people here. I want to know at least, what sets the front runners apart from one another. I mean, a lot of people, they're kind of a known quantity. Like, I had been paying attention to Biden a little bit from, from just discussion on his possible campaign previously, as well as through now, and his campaign now. So, I've been paying attention to him a little bit, but not all that much. He doesn't really enthuse me as much as I hoped he would, being sort of the meme that he is, bro Biden. I think he's great for the memes. I'm not sure what else he's great for, to be honest. It's a non-zero chance that he's going to get the nomination, though, because he's a household name. I don't think I'd be upset with him, but I don't think I'd be upset with most of the Democratic challengers. But there are some people that I agree with a lot less than, well, some even less than I hoped I would. And then there are some that I agree with more than I thought I would. And there's one in particular that I agree with more than I thought I would, and I'm kind of sad that I do. But then at the same time, I'm not overly surprised that I do. That person is Mayor de Blasio from New York City's mayor. He's running. And being a transit and train aficionado, as of course you guys know I am, I had heard plenty of stuff about Mayor de Blasio from the citizens of New York City, who can, of course, do nothing but complain because, well, they're citizens of New York City. That's kind of what you do. But even then, it was definitely... I was definitely in an echo chamber with regard to de Blasio. I didn't hear much good about him. I just heard about how much of a pain in the neck he was with respect to the subway system. I was okay with thinking that. I didn't think there was anything wrong with thinking that. I was like, oh yeah, this guy. I never really gave the guy a fair shake, but that said, I never really had to care. I don't live there. I don't really do much. I just hear about him, and I go, yeah, de Blasio, whatever. I mean, you hear a lot more displeasing, I guess the word might be, stuff about Cuomo than de Blasio. And maybe I was conflating the two a little bit too much. But, either way, point is, he made a lot of good points. Again, I won't say I'm ashamed to be as supportive as I otherwise would be of him, but I am surprised at the amount of support that I am giving him, and the amount I found myself quite liking the things that he had to say. So, I mean, it is what it is, but get this height. How come it's not using this height? Oh, you know what? Because that goes down. Alright, one mystery solved. But yeah, that was maybe the guy that I swung my opinion on the most. Except for, who did I like, and now I like them a lot less? Oh gosh, there was somebody, I swear to God, there was somebody on that stage that I had heard about, and I was like, yeah, this person seems like, they know what they're talking about, they know they're pretty good. And then I watched the debates and went, you know what, I take that back. Who the hell is it? Well, I know who it's not. And it's not Bernie, for one. I mean, Bernie Sanders is pretty much a known quantity at this point. I don't think anyone is going to be surprised by his platform. Nobody's going to be surprised as to what he has to say. It's basically just, okay, yeah, we know what you're on about, old man. Just, are you gonna, do you have, how fleshed out are those ideas? And that's really my concern. Although, my actual concern with Bernie Sanders is, are you gonna survive? If he were to become president, I would be seriously concerned for the health of our president at that point, the actual health. Because he's almost 80 years old. That means he's gonna be 80 when he goes into office. I'm not certain, but I think that would be the oldest president we've ever had in the United States. And now I'm dying. But, no, I mean, honestly, I think it would be. I'm not certain, but I think it would be. 80 years old. That's pretty up there. Even by today's standards. Most people at 80 are well retired. But hey, I mean, if he wants to run, more power to him. I'm just not sure he's going to get anywhere, and if he does, concerning for that reason. Anyway. Yeah, he's a known quantity. Who's the person that I liked less? And Bill de Blasio is probably my biggest, I like you more than I did. Elizabeth Warren, I'm not going to say outright that I hope she wins, but if everyone on the stage, at least of the people that I knew, because there are some of the other people that were on that stage that I didn't know, that I really like now. One of the ones is the guy from Ohio. He seems to have his stuff together, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean? But I think Elizabeth Warren has a pretty good chance at locking down the nomination. Again, I won't say, I'm not sure who I hope to win, really, because I don't know everything yet. I don't have enough information. Again, it's like I said, these are the debates where you're sitting down and you're going, okay, so this person said this person said this. Everyone's talking. everyone has, like, you know, 30-second blurbs that they can put out, that they can say, that make you think, you know, good or bad. Oh, you know who I like a lot less? Beto. And I really liked him when he was running in Texas. I thought he did an okay job of trying to beat out Ted Cruz. And I'll admit that a lot of it came just as came from a dislike of Ted Cruz. I would take a lot of people over Ted Cruz, but he won anyway. And you know, Texas hasn't exploded or fallen to pieces, so it's, you know, it's one of these things. It's like, okay, even if the person you don't like, even the person you don't agree with doesn't win, it's not like the world is ending. And I don't even live in Texas, so. Yeah, Beto was on the stage, and I don't know. He did a poor job of answering questions for the most part, is really what I would say. He did a poor job of actually providing answers for the questions that were pointed at him, and I'm disappointed by that. You know, I had high hopes for the guy, and I think that he could go somewhere, but he needs to formulate his ideas better. He needs to spend a lot more time, you know, even just being able to come up with half-decent responses on the fly. Of course, it was a lot of dodging questions. A lot of the questions were very loaded, but of course it's a debate. We're trying to see these people, we're trying to watch these people defend themselves. We're trying to watch these possible, you know, potential presidents. We're trying to make sure that they can, we're trying to call them out, basically, and just see if they are, you know, if they are what they say they are. Wow, that's nice, but very large. I want something smaller. I want something smaller and a little bit more modern, and not JR. PR erecting shop. That is huge. That is not smaller at all. I need a building suggestion for right here. I don't want, like, not that kind of shop. But yeah. Oh, no. I wish that I don't know where I'm going with that. Anyway. Yeah, so I did a lot of listening when it comes to that. I did a lot of thinking about these, you know, this variety of candidates. Who do I want to see most? Who do I think is going to do the best job on that stage? You know, the possible presidential stage if they were to get up there. Because, I mean, you got to think about that stuff, you know. There's no guarantee that your party's going to win, so even if you're, well, and especially if you're independent, but even if you're undecided, or even if you are, you know, a Republican Party member, it pays to keep an eye on the Democratic Party candidates, and vice versa. You know, it makes a lot of sense to do stuff like that, because you never know. You want to know what you're getting into. You don't want to just listen to this person's awful because, you know? So, getting to listen to all of them on the stage, it really made me think about a lot of things. Like I said, I like Beto less. I like de Blasio a lot more, but he's not gonna win. I would be surprised. I wouldn't be too surprised if Beto won the nomination, as you know, because he's fairly well known now. He certainly made a name for himself with the campaign that he ran. But I think that I don't think he's gonna go somewhere. There was this other woman that seemed to have a lot to say and was very well, put together. Very, very good orator, very good talker. Seemed to have her ideas very well formulated, and I cannot remember her name. So I'm hoping that I'm gonna get some more coverage of all these people, just to pay attention to them. Maybe there's like a DNC primary subreddit that I can get all information on. That would be nice. That would be useful. So, yeah. Biden, I mean, he's the most centrist of everyone there. I probably wouldn't be unhappy if... Again, I don't think I'd be unhappy if any one of these candidates in particular won. But, who's my favorite? Not Biden. I think he has a lot of crowd appeal, though, because of... again, because he's a well-known name. So he's definitely got a lot of chances. But he also has a long political history, which means that there's plenty for people to dig up about him. And he's also kind of weird. I'm just going to mention that part. Just quietly, though. There were a few standouts, like I said. Elizabeth Warren was one of them. Mostly because she sounds exactly like my old boss. Which is... It was kind of freaky. You can tell, like, she was born and raised in Oklahoma, which I would have never guessed. I would have guessed she was born and raised in Cambridge. Because she doesn't have, like, the wicked Boston accent. But she sounds exactly like my old boss. And she's from that area. And, like, I can see it when I look at her. I see, like, the heritage, the similar heritage there. And it's like, okay, this is kind of weird. And then I found out from my coworker that my old boss wants to run for office in Vermont. So, that's double weird. Anyway, yeah. So there's that. But I think she did a particularly good job. I hadn't thought much about Elizabeth Warren, which is interesting because she's been in the news quite a bit. She gets a lot of attention paid to her. So it's interesting to think that I didn't think much about her, even though she's pretty close to my neck of the woods. But I think she did a really good job on the stage. I think she did a really good job. And then, like I said, there were other people whose names that I cannot at all remember, cannot at all think about. There was the person from Ohio, who I thought did a really good job, and I really liked his platform. There was the guy who had his mic shut off, allegedly, who, well, I can't really think much about him, because he didn't really get to say anything. And I doubted some sort of weird conspiracy against him. If it did happen, it was a technical difficulty, which they had those in both the debates, which was kind of funny, but also kind of disappointing, because come on, NBC. You're a major news organization. Get it together. But yeah, I mean, I recommend taking a look through those things. If you want to be an informed voter, maybe you're not voting, maybe you're not American, but maybe you're too young to vote in this upcoming election in 2020, but I would take a look at these people, because even if you don't want to be involved in politics in your life, politics is involved in your life. These are the laws by which we are governed and, controlled and whatever you want to call it. These are the laws to which we must adhere, and the policies that our government will work on. It really pays to know what's going on, and it pays to know what to expect from a given administration. So, I want to hear more talk about net neutrality, honestly. That's, I kind of want to hear about that. Get that on board. What is, like, my issue? Oh, crap, my phone's dying. Sorry, hold on. I'm not sure what my issue is as a voter, you know? As a voter, what are the things that I care about most? Oh, crap, what is that? Game, come on! No, back that way! Oh, God. I'm out of control, guys. I'm not doing anything! Everything's going crazy. Okay. I think we're back. Maybe not. I don't know. I wouldn't call myself a single issue voter. I know a lot of people are, and that's understandable for a lot of reasons, because people have things that they care very, very strongly about. There are a lot of things that are, you know, maybe deal breakers, I guess. I don't really know. But it's not like I am looking for the person who is going to do this. If I did have to have a single issue, it would probably be infrastructure, because I care very, very deeply about infrastructure. Not necessarily because it's my job, but it is my job. I do have to care about that. I literally get paid to pay attention to it. And I got in an argument with somebody the other day, complaining about the roundabouts that they've installed over in Apponaug here, or the rotaries, as we Rhode Islanders tend to call them. And it was like, oh, it's so bad, it's so bad. It's like, it's not, though. You know, the traffic analysis has been done, and not even that. If you live there, which I had to drive through there twice a day, which wasn't really fun before the roundabouts, and now it's bearable. It's better. It's not... There are still some stupid people who don't know how to use them, who go when they shouldn't go, or try to let people in to the roundabout, which is incredibly stupid. Because if you are in there, you have the right of way, you need to keep going. You don't stop in the middle of an intersection, you don't stop in the middle of a roundabout. So, yeah. Anyway, can you tell that I'm a little bit annoyed about that? But no, I got in an argument with somebody about it, because they were insisting that it's worse. That it's worse than it was, when it's not. It's not worse than it was. It's so much better than it was. It's miles better than it was. And my dad agreed with me when I was talking about it with him. It's like, you would have to avoid the entire town at rush hour. You just wouldn't go over there. And so, you know, I felt vindicated. Like, I knew anyway. I've witnessed it firsthand, but more than that, it's my job to know. So, I don't know. It's my job. Infrastructure is very, very important to me, because it's my job, and because it is literally the backbone of the country. We have a fantastic interstate highway system, which a lot of people take for granted, but was the work of, you know, decades of labor and massive amounts of government funding. And we have, you know, a robust rail system and a fairly robust passenger rail system. You know, it's not great. It's not the 1950s, but it's good. It's good enough. I will stand by Amtrak as being good enough. I know that's not exactly a high accolade, but I don't know what you can expect. This isn't the days of the big railroads competing and blah blah blah. We have a public, government funded and mostly government run rail system, and it works pretty okay. It's not perfect, but it's not unusable. If you can, stomach a little bit of delay, or whatever, a little bit of unpredictability, which isn't what you want in travel, of course. But for the most part, it's doing the job that it was meant to do. And it could do a better job. We need more Amtrak. But that's part of infrastructure too. And so if somebody is willing to spend money to improve our highways, our railways, our cities, whatever, all the way from the municipal level all the way up to the presidency, I like that a lot. And of course, a lot of people don't, because, well, you're spending money. It's spending money. People don't like that, and I can understand that, because to spend money, you have to raise money, and to raise money, you have to raise taxes, typically, or cut subsidies, or, that sort of thing. And that's something that people are understandably unhappy with. Because, it's your money. You don't want somebody taking it and doing whatever they want with it, and that's completely fair. And if you think that what we've got is enough, and, we don't need more taxes, then, I don't necessarily disagree with you. It's all about, who are we taxing, how much are we getting, how much are we, spending on this, that, and the other thing. That's what really matters. But, I could talk about that till the cows come home. And I can if you want me to, but I really just wanted to weigh in my thoughts on the debate, because that's what was on my mind. I had a lot of thoughts about it. I came home on Friday and I was like, I can't wait. Or, well, I didn't come home and say that, because I had already realized that I wasn't going to get to do it. But I left work on Friday like, I can't wait to do under construction, because I want to spill my guts about all this stuff. And, I know not everyone in the audience is going to have the same views as I do. And you are perfectly free to have those views. I mean, this is America. We are the land of the free. You can say what you want, you can think what you want, you can, as long as you're not infringing on somebody else, inciting violence, or, doing anything else rash, there's no reason not to. I mean, we don't silence political dissidents here. This isn't Putin's Russia. Or Stalin's Russia. Or, well, Russia in general. Russia throughout the ages. Russia hasn't historically been a place where you can talk bad about the person in charge. It just happens to be that they have a very large and empty swath of land where they can stick you, so you can be forgotten about until the end of time. We only have a small place on Cuba, so we can only fit so many people at once. Cuba's not all that big anyway. But, all joking aside, yeah. I mean, you may not share my opinion. I don't like to get into my opinion that often, mostly because I don't want, I don't want to invite dislikes, I know some people, maybe not people in this audience, because I would hope most of you guys are fairly open-minded, but there are certainly some people out there that probably already dislike me because I mentioned the Democratic debates in the first place. But there are people on the flip side that would, that get irate at the sound of the name Donald Trump. There are a lot of people all over the place that get upset very quickly, where, it's an outrage culture, blah, blah, blah. You can go on about it for days, you can analyze it, you can think about it, whatever. The only thing you can really do is make sure you yourself are making educated decisions, having educated thoughts, and going about your life in a way that you don't turn into one of these angry people. And I hate to lay down a classification like that, because that's not really fair. A lot of people are angry for a lot of different reasons, and some of them are pretty well justified. But it's worth it for us to think about the way we feel about things, and what are we going to do with those feelings? How are we going to make stop putting it the wrong way around. How are we going to fix it? One person at a time. And that person is ourselves. You can really only control what you were doing, what you were thinking. So, if you don't like something, be that change. Anyway, that's my channeling of Gandhi for this week. If you want me to talk about anybody specific from the Democratic debates, absolutely, or if you have your own opinions, if you've watched them yourself, which, like I said, do recommend. It pays to be informed. It's 1 hour each, and there are 10 candidates on each debate, so that's why it's a little bit hectic. Understandable if you can't really follow it, because I had trouble too. I didn't know most of their names. I really wish they had done it like, almost like a Let's Play, Achievement Hunter Let's Play, where the person's talking, you can see their name in the corner of the screen and their face. It would have been a massive help. NBC, please go down to Austin and take some notes. Or at least just go on YouTube, I guess. But also, it's interesting that it was in Florida. They can't host it in a non-swing state, I guess. Anyway. Alright, I'll wrap that up for today. That's enough, unless I find a good reason to come back to it. What else was I going to talk about? There were some other things that were on my mind. You know what? I wanted to come back to Western Stars, because I have listened to that almost non-stop at work since it came out. And I wasn't all too enthused at first. I was like, oh, this is kind of... yeah, it's alright. I mean, I feel like that's with a lot of Bruce's music, though, because a lot of it's very melancholy. Bruce Springsteen's music. For those out of the loop, Bruce Springsteen released a new solo album a couple weeks ago called Western Stars. And it's very, very much a return to form for Bruce Springsteen. It's a lot of singing, storytelling, almost like in a Johnny Cash sort of way, but not as much talking, Johnny Cash, did a lot of his things as like he's talking. He's not really singing too much, except for the refrain or whatever. Bruce doesn't stop singing, but a lot of his things are very deeply, and very clearly, this is a story that's being told. It just happens to have a melody. So, yeah, there's that. It's very, very much a return to form for Bruce Springsteen, and I'm actually quite appreciative of that. Not necessarily because I demand a return to form, but because there are a lot of people who care a lot about that. To come back to not necessarily to the outrage culture idea, but just to the fact that people do get worked up over a lot of things. I don't necessarily think that being upset over your favorite singer, songwriter, band, whatever, diverging massively from the tone that they've created for themselves. I don't think it's unfair to be upset about that, because you came to a certain artist for a certain thing, and you sort of expect to continue receiving that thing. But at the same time, I don't think it's justified to get super upset about it. Just if you don't like it, you can be disappointed, you can express your disappointment with, your wallet. And, talking about it is fine. Just being super angry about it. Where's the sense in that? Save your upset for something that matters, Not saying music doesn't matter, but come on. I don't want to, spilled milk and all that. So, that said, I was glad to see him return to form like this, because it means that a lot of his fans that knew him from, back in the day, more or less, are now getting what they know, what they expect from Bruce. These songs that are written and sang and played in such a way, with such a, an arrangement, these instruments, these people, whatever. It's familiar to people. And that's really good. That really does make me happy to know that people are getting what they want out of this album, and I am too. I didn't know what I wanted. I wasn't like, oh man, I really hope we see another Bruce Springsteen album, but I really need it to be a return to form one, or even want it to be like a, almost like a step back in time. I think bands need to evolve as well, because, it gets a little stale doing the same old thing. If you're always doing the same old thing, you turn into, I don't know, like Nickelback, where, I'm not gonna lie, some of their music is pretty good, but they have a formula that they stick to almost to the letter, to the point where they go and this is really smart. I think it's, I admire it for its cleverness, but it sort of takes the soul out of music in a little way, where they go and they analyze their previous hits to see what in them, was similar, what did people like, so that they can craft more songs like it. They are trying to craft songs for an audience, and to an extent that's what all songwriters do, but a lot of them, they're also doing it for themselves. They also want to, they want to tell these things that they're thinking about deep in their heart, and Springsteen even talks about that. He's gone on stage and he's talked about, like, he says that, he's never experienced these things. He grew up a pretty sheltered life. He hung out in New Jersey and played his guitar, and he got pretty big off of that. And that's understandable, he's writing stories, but these are stories that he's telling, but they're situations he's never been in. Things he's never known. And it's really interesting to see him admit that, and to think about, like, what he's talking about, what he's singing about, that he's never even really experienced, and yet he can do such an excellent job of making good music out of it, making really good songs out of it. He's got a lot of talent. Either way, I'm in love with the album. I am probably going to pick up a copy for myself, to put on my iPod or whatever, and also maybe a copy for my dad. I'm not sure if he's heard it. I didn't get to talk to him about it when I was with him, but I totally should have, because I know he'll appreciate it. I know a lot of his, he's listened to a lot of Bruce's more modern stuff, and he wasn't the most enthused by it, and I can understand that. I can see that. He's one of these old fans. He doesn't get upset about it, but there's definitely a sound that he likes, that he misses in Bruce Springsteen, that he expects. And this album is it. It's going back to it. It's if you miss the way that Bruce Springsteen sounded, you don't have to miss it any longer. So, there's that. As for me, I've got quite a few favorites on the album now. It really expanded as time went on. There are only a couple of songs that I really don't like, and I don't super dislike them. I just don't love them. One of them being Stones, which isn't bad. It isn't a bad song. Well, I don't think any of them are bad songs. But I just couldn't get into it. Stones and... I'll give a Sleepy Joe's Cafe a pass. It's alright. Let's see. What else? What's the other one that I was thinking of? Oh, The Stuntman, Drive Fast. Donna Grace, apparently that's her favorite song on the album. I just don't get it. I'm just not into it. I don't know why I can't. And I've listened to it more than once now. I've listened to it quite a few times, as a matter of fact, because I keep listening to the album all the way through. And every time I listen to it, it's like, yeah, this is... there's something here. There's something here, but I just don't get it. Just whatever it is, I'm not feeling it. It's not making me feel anything. On the flip side is Moonlight Motel, where, oh my god, I feel so much. Like, And it was compounded by, there was one YouTube comment on the video, said something like, he quoted the last line of the song or whatever. He goes, wait, is this the end of the story of, the same character from Racing in the Street and Thunder Road, I think is what he said. And that just hit me like a ton of bricks. It hit me like a goddamn freight train. In no small part because Thunder Road is the song for Madison and I, but also because, God, it's just, I hadn't really listened to it until that comment came around, and then I really started thinking about the lyrics, and I just felt like, wow, you feel this sense of weight, this sense of pressure, like this horrible, like something's gone wrong and you can't fix it sort of sense. It's such a shame. And there's really nothing that's a shame about it, because it's this song that's based on nothing. But it's watching this story come to a close and just going, ouch. Like, ouch. I don't know. Tucson Train is still a favorite of mine. It's really good. I'm not sure if it's the best song on the album for me, but it might be. Earlier today I was singing There Goes My Miracle. That's another good one. Not as good. It was one of these ones that they released and it was hyped up quite a bit. I think it got its own music video too. And I like it. I like it quite a lot. It's not my favorite, but I do like it. I'm just not sure if it deserves everything that it's got. Western Stars is really, really good. And I mean the song, not the album. But I do mean the album, too. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say, necessarily. Alright, we textured this area. It's only taken like an hour. An hour and 2 minutes. I'm still going to have to come back and do more here, but we are definitely getting somewhere with it, so that's good. Now, I need to figure out what to do with this area here. How does this look in wide swaths? Yeah, this looks fine. This is a former field, right? And maybe I'll plant some trees or something out here. We've got another field over there that we've got to fill in. I also need to put down grass, like this grass underneath all these houses. Because these guys probably have pretty nice lawns. These guys are, they bought out pieces of this old farm and they had houses built on them. Or, more likely, a developer bought out pieces of the old farm and used it to build houses. So, that is the growth, the most recent growth in town. In this day and age, we're in the 1950s, everyone has a car, and of course we've got rapid expansion. I'm not sure if this universe, this world that I'm building, has a World War II equivalent, but in this period in time you have the baby boomers, and the baby boomers are currently being made as all these guys come back from the war and get together with girls and go start families. So, that's something to think about. Again, I don't really have a timeline nailed down for this world, for this universe. I don't know everything that's going on. It's not establishing anything, but it's established that it isn't real life. This is not somewhere on the West Coast. Yeah. Okay. Gotta keep going. And then Oh crap, that's the wrong texture. Okay. So, I mean, I love doing all the detail work, but there comes a point where you have to just sit down and do, like, the heavy lifting stuff. Although, okay, so that's going to be the edge of this anyway. It doesn't look good, but it looks bad enough. Like, it looks like what I wanted to look like, which is this field that was tilled and tilled and tilled and tilled and tilled, and it's finally fallow now, and it's, you know, just getting this patchy grass, which will put texture on top of this tropico grass. Anyway. Yeah, between my car and Madison's car, all the work that's been done between my cars and Madison's car, Madison's worried about, you know, how are we gonna pay for this stuff, and I'm trying to pay attention to the finances, all that, but we're lucky, she and I, because we have old cars, and why does that make us lucky when we have to deal with all these mechanic bills that come, you know, that just show up? Because we don't have a car payment. And one of my cousins was complaining about a car payment, and I said something to the effect of, oh, is that like a mechanic's bill, except it's more regular but lower? And, you know, I got some laughs. We were at a family gathering. But, you know, it's almost true, though, you know? Because when you get a car that gets up in age like this, especially when you buy it secondhand, and there's so much freaking stuff wrong with it, when you have a car that gets up in age like that, you start paying not regular bills, but every once in a while you have a pretty hefty mechanic bill. And eventually you run out of parts to replace, and then you don't have those anymore. At least for a little while. But the fact of the matter is, it's almost equivalent to having, you know, this monthly payment you're paying on a car because it's got a warranty or it's got, you know, whatever, and it's still being paid off, or alternately you're leasing it, which I had a whole conversation with Donna Grace about cars that are better to lease than to own. You know, these cars that are really nice, but that are an absolute pain in the neck for maintenance, and that I would never want to own, you know, for much longer than I have to, I guess. Hold on, that's, when would this road have come through here? Probably very recently, honestly, so I'm going to leave this wall in place. Whoops, wrong thing. Give me this. And since we're on the subject of music, let me read this comment. Dean says, B.B. King was a blues singer and record producer. Amongst others, there's a street named after him in downtown Memphis. And it's funny, now that he is mentioned in that context, I recognize the name. I won't say I know who he is, but I do recognize the name. You know, I know that he is very famous. That's something that I know. Again, now that I've heard the name. It took me a bit. And I just didn't, I didn't make the connection. I wasn't sure what was being asked or said, really. And it was just like, okay, like, yeah, B.B. King. I don't know who that is. I like this, but you can't see it from far enough away. It really does match the ground, though. Alright, we need something else. Again, I like it, but I need to be able to see it. It's way too fine for what we need. Nope, that's also way too fine. How's your hair? Fine. Dry grass, 20 meters. That is not enough dry grass. This is, whoa! More like it. See, now that I put all this new RAM in, my CPU is again my bottleneck, and so it's making everything slow down. No, I need thick grass. I need very thick grass. Not cabbage. Alright, let me grab the other grass then. Oh, this might do it. But I can't see it. Whoa! Jesus Christ, I can't control anything over here. You see, that you can see from far away. This I can't even see from here. Why is that? Why are you like this? That's better. It's this kind of grass. It's just, this has totally taken over this field. And this, again, more houses are taking over other parts of the field. I mean, you just need to really make it less than obvious as to the arrangement of things like this. I should have sat down and listened to more BB King. Just so I can talk about it, because I didn't expect to be talking about Western Stars as much as I am. Just in general. Like, I love it. I love the album. I love Bruce Springsteen. On my bucket list is to see him live, and we're expecting a album with the E Street Band to come out, and then a tour to be announced, and God, that's exciting. I want to see him in concert, in a live show. I don't care where it is, if it's at Foxborough, if it's at the Civic Center downtown, if it's, up in Boston, I don't care. As long as the ticket prices are, like, affordable, then I'm going. Of course, I did not at all have delusions of being able to see him on Wall Street. Yeah. On Broadway when he was in New York City, because I'm not filthy stinking rich. But now that he's going to be going on an actual tour, oh my God, I'm so sold. He's almost 70 though. Like, wow. Oh, that's the other thing. To return to the Democratic candidates for a second, Joe Biden is the same age as... he's not the same age. He's almost the same age as Bernie Sanders. Talk about two old dudes that still have a pretty damn good chance of winning that nomination. I don't know, we'll see the field thin out here, I think, relatively quickly, because people are going to realize that they really got no chance, but a lot of them will stay in the field, or, stay in the candidate field just so they have a spot in the debate, so that they have a moment in the spotlight, if not just to push their own political careers, so that they can sort of impose certain things on the other candidates, to make them talk in one way or another, because, the spoiler effect is real in a two-party democracy, yo. Watch CGP Gray's videos on voting for more information as to why that's a thing, and how that's a thing, and what we should do about it. First past the post is garbage. Anyway, Maine does it better. Freddie Cure says, "Sorry, Ellis, for the confusion. I meant iron from somewhere and coal from somewhere to a steel mill at Skyline, Summit, Zion, or Tombstone. There will actually be a large steel mill complex at Zion. That's the goal. Up in the mountains, we're going to have a lot of iron ore coming down, and coal coming down. I think I talked about that last time. Over here, we're mostly going to be consuming coal. Most of the minerals are located on the south side of the mountains, so not where we are right now. But we are going to have some mines and stuff up here. I'm not sure if the nearest coal mine is going to be in, like, Blood Gulch or Wakefield up on the Geiger Mountains, but it is going to be up there somewhere. And then pretty much all the other coal, so we're going to have coal coming off the narrow gauge, and then pretty much all the other coal is going to come from mines on the VMR, which are going to be much farther up there, including the gigantic load of mines at Columbia. So that, which is on the VMR now, that used to be an Everett Lake, a mining and navigation company branch, or well, it was their main line technically. They were a hell of a coal hauler back in the day. They were not at all supposed to be, but they did it, as well as many other things that they were not really supposed to be doing under their charter. They never actually finished the railroad they were chartered to build. That's part of the reason that they got, bought. Bought out, but like in a friendly way, though. It's a nice hostile takeover. But yeah, and then we're also going to have iron ore mines up there. I don't think we're going to have iron ore mines on the 3-foot gauge, but we will have iron ore mines on the VMR. The VMR is going to, because of their takeover of the Everett Lake, because the Everett Lake Mining Navigation Company was a really big mineral transporter, from coal to gold, everything. So they got a lot of these mineral rights, and they are the biggest mineral hauling railroad on the peninsula. Coming in a distant second is the Zion and Skyline, and the Gilson Eastern really doesn't haul anything that doesn't come down to the edge. So yeah, that's that. Gilson Eastern hardly hauls any coal, even. The coal that the Gilson Eastern hauls, aside from what its contract is with the Geiger Mountains, really only hauls coal for its own purposes. It doesn't do a lot of coal hauling otherwise. The Zion and Skyline has that stuff on lock. It's got the connection to the steel mill and the connection to the power plant. So basically everything is being run by Zion and Skyline coal. Anything that matters. Well, that's another huge swath filled in. That actually turned out really good. Maybe we'll add a couple saplings out there a little later. Let's see, I've got 40 minutes left. Now what do I do? Bad boys, bad boys. It was really funny to see Caught in Providence on the TV in Pennsylvania. I love that our little show has gotten around as much as it has. I love that Judge Caprio is so universally loved and revered for the most part. It warms my heart to know that Rhode Island is getting such good press. Because the other big Rhode Island thing that came out is the movie Vault. Did I talk about this last week? Oh crap, I don't remember if I did. I saw two... Yeah, no, I definitely did. I definitely talked about Vault already. Either way, if you want to hear me talk about that, it's you can go back and watch the last episode. Vault is a movie about a massive heist that took place in Rhode Island back in the 70s. It's one of the largest in U.S. history, and almost none of it has ever been recovered. Or actually, I believe none of it has ever been recovered. Hold on, that was a phone call. Which is astonishing because it was like, it was many millions of dollars that were stolen from the mob. But according to the movie, they were actually given to the mob's leader, so, whatever. Sorry, I just kind of spoiled it. But, I mean, watch the movie. I haven't done my due diligence. I haven't done my research to figure out how much of that is real and how much of that is embellished for the film. I would hesitate to believe that they know that much about the characters, but most of the characters that are prominent in the movie ended up serving a lot of time afterwards. So, so plenty of time for people to conduct interviews and stuff like that. And to, sort of suss out all these different things about these people and about what happened to them in the meantime. Of course, they didn't know the whole story either. They were pawns in somebody else's game of chess, but that person themselves was being controlled by other people. They were like 2 levels deep in the chess. So it really is. It was engaging. It was better than I expected considering the limited theater run it had. But I like I said, I already talked about that last week. What else can I talk about? I was going to bring this up at the beginning of the show because I was talking about how I was feeling miserable on Thursday and wouldn't have had much to say and would have had kind of a depressing show where I didn't say a whole lot. I was very quiet most of the time and, whatever. I would just be, miserable about really nothing. I don't have a whole lot to be miserable about. Miserable about all things considered. I've got a house. I had a car. Things are pretty good for me right now. I'm liking life right now. But yeah. I don't know. I was just feeling kind of blasé. Maybe I didn't eat enough. Maybe this, maybe that. And I was just like, I can't do it. And then I was thinking, right? I really am impressed by a lot of these folks, and I was one of them, I used to be, that do videos on such a super consistent schedule or even every day. I don't even understand how people like Gus from Rooster Teeth have enough things to talk about for the podcast every week. And I try to follow their MO to an extent and be like, okay, I'm not going to talk about this until, under construction, or I'm not going to talk about this. Well, under construction doesn't matter because it's just me and you guys. But when it comes down to other stuff, particularly train-related stuff that, Weibold is involved in, or Milky is involved in, or, that hits close to home with us on the podcast, it's kind of a big deal to be able to talk about that and get everyone's genuine reactions and get everyone's genuine thoughts out on the show. And so that's why a lot of the time I'm very hesitant to talk about a lot of things before the podcast with other people. And there have been a few things that we totally blew the discussion by talking about it before we started the show. And I'm doing the show and kicking myself because I didn't get everyone's genuine reactions or first thoughts or whatever. Or we just sort of burned all the discussion about it. We would have to rehash the same thing a second time. Which I'm not the biggest fan of doing. And kind of... When we know that we're doing it, and when we have... basically, when we've already talked about something, and we're talking about it again for the sake of talking about it again, and not because we want to, that's when things get uninteresting. Because we just, our hearts aren't in it. And we can just say what we said, or we can just sort of leave it be. And a lot of the time it's the second option, where really nothing gets said. And the audience misses out on what was a lot of otherwise good discussion. Also, there are some times where we come up with a really great title, because somebody says something really stupid before we start the show. And, and then I don't get to talk about it. So... That's that tragedy. Little minor tragedies. But that wasn't why I was miserable. It was just being miserable. That's sort of a bleh day at work, too. Speaking of that, actually, you know what? So, I am currently drowning at work in 5 and 6 leg intersections in a stupid little place called Middletown, New York, which has a really cool... O&W station, which is going to be torn down probably soon. That is New York, Ontario, and Western, I believe. Yeah, so they have a really cool station. That's the only reason I ever want to go there, but now I really don't want to go there because, God, I hate this place. Their intersections are all messy, and they had us do some weird stuff, and I'm trying to sort them out and get everything squared away just so that we can build new traffic signals there. And, oh my God, it is never ending. I've had actual dreams about it. I've had dreams. So during the night, I get no escape from work. So that's happening. And then I finally got a moment where I could take a breather, and I was like, I have worked a lot of hours. I'm going to pull up my hardcore save and see how things are. And I finally got enough diamonds for diamond armor. I went gallivanting through an abandoned mine shaft, which, man, back when abandoned mine shafts were released, I would have never done that. I would have seen the wood and moved 3 kilometers away. Before, if I heard a single spider, it was the end of my adventure. Full stop. So, yeah. I did it. I went through a mine shaft. I killed like 3 spider spawners, cave spider spawners. I didn't die. I only got poisoned a couple of times. I was really, really tactical about it. Just trying to dig through walls and stuff like that. Like I was in a super hostile, And I got some half-decent loot out of there, and then I finally, like I said, got enough diamonds for a diamond suit, which I am so hesitant to enchant because I don't want to have to go get another one. And also, I don't have a lot of XP, which means I have to go out and kill things, which I'm not too keen on doing because, well, it's hardcore mode, and one bad encounter with, a witch could end my day. Could literally end me. I've also gotten quite proficient with a crossbow. So, that's another consequence, because I got a crossbow long before I got my hands on a bow. Because I spawned right next to a pillager outpost, and I was just sort of like, okay, so that's there. One of these days, I'll raid it. And then I saw a video of somebody doing the same thing in their hardcore save, just going in, boarding up the exits, killing everyone inside, which wasn't that many people. And then going up to the roof, looting the chest, which doesn't have a lot of loot in it, but it does have a crossbow, which is great if you're really hurting for long-range weaponry. And then leaping out using the water bucket to land, which is risky in and of itself, but You can do it consistently. You can get good at that. And I'm fairly good at it. At least historically I was. I haven't leapt out of too many things lately, but maybe I should get back into it. I just executed that. I didn't kill any of the pillager leaders because I didn't want to get the bad omen, because I don't want to deal with a pillager raid, because holy cow, those giant villager beast things are brutal and they will murder you without remorse. They will tear you to shreds. So, I dealt with one of them once on normal on the server when I had a place to hide from it and just shoot at it. And I don't want to do that again. I really don't. I don't want to induce a raid. But I did find a couple of villages that I've been trying to not grow necessarily, but just keep alive. And I tailored my farming back at my base, which I super upped my farming. Got some beetroot. That was nice. So that I can sell things to these guys. So I can sell things to these villagers in these various different villages. I also started making a map wall so that I can remember where they all are. I won't go exploring without a map, or at least a compass, but ideally I will have a map, because I don't want to lose my base, and I don't want to lose anything cool that I find, particularly good villages, because in my first hardcore world, I got the worst luck with villages. Also, right now I'm in the middle of redoing my villages, my custom villagers on the good old survival server, because some things have changed and things are bugging out. I also found a really cool looking Stargate mod that I want to play with. Like, literally cool looking. I'm not sure how functional it is. Maybe I'll just sit on it and wait for a while. But oh man, I've wanted a good Stargate mod for a long time. There is a Stargate mod, and it's not half bad. But here's the thing. So there's this other mod out there. It's called Mistcraft. And in Mistcraft, you can craft these books that will let you travel to other randomized dimensions, where things could be very similar to the regular Minecraft overworld, all the way up to mind-bendingly different, and you just die. That's also in there. Both of those settings are there. They can both happen. And the disappointing thing about the Stargates mod, as it currently stands, is that it's basically just that. It is Stargates. You can put one down, you can put another one down, you can link them up, you can dial them, you can, do whatever. Also, it depends very heavily on other mods. But, or a lot of the time it can. But I wish for, I want a mod where Stargates themselves are really, really rare. You'd find them in, like, giant pyramids or in, other unusual and very cool looking bases. Maybe like in a stronghold-esque thing. But I think the giant pyramid is the easiest one to go with because, well, obvious connection between Stargates and pyramids. So, I mean, you might have like Naquita or something that naturally generates in the world that you can use to do all sorts of things with Stargates with, but I don't think that's necessary. I think what's necessary is having a Stargate that you can find that maybe it'll have unlimited uses, because effectively your average Stargate on a random planet is going to be it's basically never going to run out of gas, because it's being run off of the Naquita, and it's going to be either drawing power from the environment around it, or it's just going to have tons of power charged up, or it's going to be drawing power from the other end. Basically, as long as it has a DHD, a dial home device, the little thing you punch, the coordinates into, it's basically going to run forever. And that's just because of the way that it's set up. They don't really talk about gates running out of power too much. But for the sake of this mod, which would really be more about the spirit of Stargates rather than the functionality of them, you can find a Stargate in a pyramid, and you can, you may be able to find addresses or whatever. And that would let you go to other places, other Mistcraft-like areas where you would come out of the gate on the other side, and you would not know if up is going to be down and left is going to be right, so to speak. If it's going to be this totally weird, bizarro world, or if it's just going to be basically regular Minecraft. And you could find, places that are like, the world is made of diamonds, or something, obscene and ridiculous like that. But possible to find. And that's what I want to see out of a Stargate mod. I want to get the feeling of exploring other worlds, not just the ability to play with Stargates. And that's why I think Stargates in Gary's mod kind of falls through, because the maps in Gary's mod are pretty limited. Because the Source Engine's maps are pretty limited. You can only have them so big, and they can't be that varied. And Minecraft being the platform that it is, or being, what it is, I think it needs that. Because if Mistcraft can be such a big hit, just give me Mistcraft, but with Stargates instead. And I will totally install that thing, and I will love it. I will love every second of it. I want it so bad. But yeah, I just, that's my thoughts on this Stargate mod, on Stargate mods. I want not just the functionality of Stargates, where you can dial a place up and use it. I want the exploration part of Stargates. I want the part where you're going to untold other worlds, because that is the really cool part about it. Not just the this is a really amazing device. Not gonna lie, I think it's one of the coolest devices ever made in science fiction. Yes, I'm gonna say that, because of how adaptable and how much potential it has. You can fight me if you want. I think modders can absolutely tap that potential. Again, if you can just combine the Stargates and Mistcraft, just give me Mistcraft with Stargates, I will love it. Because it means that there is some real meaning to getting to play with a Stargate. If you want teleporters or fast travel, there are a million ways you can do that. But Stargates are a way to get from one planet to another, not to get across town. If you want to get across town, there's these things called rings for that. But, Stargates are a way to go and see the universe. Even the weird corners. So yeah, that's my... I want that. If I was a modder, if I knew how to do that stuff, I would get in touch with these people. I mean, I can still get in touch with the people and tell them how I think they should run their mod. But that, that's not overly helpful, honestly. Maybe I should just say something in the Reddit thread and see if it gets any traction. If I can formulate it well enough, maybe I'll say something about it. But that's as far as I'm ever really going to go with it, because I don't know Java and coding and stuff. I don't know it well enough to effectively do anything, and I'm not going to sit back and make demands when I can't, help. I can't help. I can't say anything. If there's errors being thrown, I'm worthless, basically. And how do you solve the problems of, oh, okay, so it's, how do you find new gate addresses? Well, there would be some in desert temples, maybe? Or you could just find them as loot chests, or maybe you could get a villager to sell them. it's you could do that, and also you could probably find some on other worlds. If all of the gates have a few addresses associated with them, then then if you get one or two, from originally finding a gate, then you can use them, go through. On the other side, you might find a handful more. Maybe one is the one to go home. That would be kind of a trip, right? Imagine that, right? Imagine if they weren't so different, if the worlds weren't so different, but you didn't necessarily know what your gate address was. Maybe there would be a difficult way to find it out, or maybe you just wouldn't necessarily know. Then that would mean that stepping through the gate might be a one-way trip the first time you find one. That would actually be an interesting way to do it, where you find, again, maybe between 1 and 5 gate addresses, and one of them might be your own gate. The one at the top might be your own gate, or it might be, a hint at what it is. So you could play around with that. You could really make it fairly high stakes almost, just by making it like, oh, you might never get back, or you might get back, but it's going to be a time trying to do so. It might be tricky. I don't know. I think throwing that in there throws a real curveball as to what the mod could be. And of course, you could expand it so that you've got, mobs or bosses or whatever. Things that have to do with all the fact that you're exploring the universe through stargates. Blah, 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 blah. It doesn't have to be that complicated. I just want to be able to go to different worlds with the Stargate. And I think simple enough if you want to use Stargates and whatever. If you want to use this concept, make it so that you're using it for exploration, not just so you have a way to teleport. And there's a million ways to do that. We don't necessarily need another very fancy looking teleporter. It does look good though. I'm not sure how you would make it Minecrafty necessarily. It's one of the few things where normally I do care about mods and their sort of Minecraftiness. It's the reason that I still prefer Rails of War over the other one. Over what is it called? Immersive Railroading. And it's not because Rails of War is the better mod, because, let's be honest. Rails of War has minimal content. It's being developed by one person very slowly. It doesn't really keep up with the versions at all. And there isn't a whole lot to do. Particularly in survival. It's a cool thing to have and to look at. But that's kind of about it. But I still prefer it over Immersive Railroading because it just feels right, Immersive Railroading is a very cool mod to just play around with trains in Minecraft, whereas Rails of War is very clearly Minecraft trains. It doesn't pretend to be anything else. It's not, oh, you're here to play with trains in this blocky world. It is, here are the trains that belong to this blocky world. And I think that earns it so many points in my book. I love Nathan's style. So yeah. I don't know how much more I can say about the Stargate's Minecraft thing. I think it's the best sci-fi device that was ever created. Just in terms of its storytelling and, storytelling potential, its adaptability, it's like it's so good. There are so many things you can do with it. And eventually, or slowly, the writers of Stargate over 15 years, or more than that even, fleshed out all the mechanics of the Stargate and all the things that it could do and it couldn't do. And finally, we have this thing that is so well developed in terms of what, in terms of its capabilities, that I just want to play with it. I just want to see it. I just want to see it used to its full potential in a game. Modded into a world, to its full potential in a game. Gary's mod is cool because the Stargates are cool, but it's really more of just a play with Stargates and not a use Stargates. I want used Stargates. For those who aren't familiar with Stargate, I really do recommend it. It's one of the best, pieces of sci-fi television that have ever been made, in my opinion. And the fact that it ran for 10 years is kind of a testament to that, honestly. A bad show doesn't last 10 years. Speaking of shows that last forever, I haven't checked on Alex Trebek in a while. I hope he's doing okay. I know his prognosis was not good, and I know that it's a very, very serious condition that he has, this pancreatic cancer. It was pancreatic, right? Or was it? It was some sort of cancer, and I believe it started with a P. It was pretty intense. It is pretty intense, and I can only assume and hope that he's getting the best care that money can buy, and that he's continuing to host Jeopardy as he should be. I don't want to see him go from that show. They're never going to be able to get anybody to replace him. Nobody's going to be able to fill those shoes, no matter who it is. It's going to be like the guy who was president after George Washington. It doesn't matter who that guy is. Obviously, it's what Thomas. It was Adams, right? It was John Adams. Whatever. President number 2. Nobody remembers him because he wasn't George Washington. It's not because he was bad, because he wasn't. He just wasn't George Washington. He was, he was that other guy. He was the guy that's trying to fill in these massive shoes that Washington left behind when he stepped down after his second term. And set a fantastic precedent for our country. Precedent. For our country. Which is pretty unprecedented. Not necessarily across the globe, I don't think, but in general, it's unusual to have a change of power for 200 years with no, basically with no trouble. That's good to hear, It's nice when everyone plays by the rules. It's so easy for somebody to become a tyrant, It really is. I think, not to do too much topical political commentary, but this administration is definitely showing us how far you can push the boundaries of our democracy. Where are the walls, really? And is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I mean, I think it's really a learning experience for us, for America, to see what does our democracy really mean in terms of where will people draw the line. And if it's here or if it's there, it's, whatever. It's a very critical look at the way our system is that we've never really analyzed before. Just to put it in very To put it in very loose and general terms, I'll say that, you know. So, the continuance of the peaceful transfer of power is something that is one of the best things in our country, because it means that no matter what, you get some fresh minds in there. Now, a lot of people will refer to that and then talk about congressional term limits, which is sort of a sticky wicket of an issue because, well, people that are just coming in, they don't know everything. That's, you know, young Congress people, or just new Congress people, or, you know, presidents even, or, you know, whatever. People that are assuming any political position for the first time, especially if it is their first political position, period, they're going to need to learn how to play the game. And I know for a lot of people, that seems shameful, that a politician is learning to play the game of politics. You know, we as citizens, we often look down on the game of politics because it is playing with us. You know, it is, we are the pawns, you know? But at the same time, I think one of the other things that this administration has showed us is that if you don't play the game, you don't get anything done. You don't, you know, it's really hard to work with people if you don't want to converse with them, you know? If it's, well, you know, it's our way or the highway. No, it's our way or the highway. Nothing's going to happen. And the game isn't just a game for the sake of gaming, it's a game for the sake of compromise, for the sake of understanding, for the sake of trying to find a middle ground that we might have lost, you know, that we don't want to go without. Because in doing so, you find solutions. You find solutions, maybe not even the kind that you were looking for. But, you know, it means that maybe not everyone's happy, but there are fewer people unhappy when you strike a balance. And I think that's something that we all need to learn. Especially right now. Compromise is the backbone of, well, basically everything. Okay. Oh, that's right. I was going to put grass down in the middle here. Yeah, you're very rarely going to meet somebody in life, especially if you're working with them or, you know, being in a relationship with them, that you're not going to have to compromise with on some level. And if you don't do that, then you're going to lose out. No, you're going to frustrate people. You're going to undermine your own relationships, your own, you know, personal ability by being uncompromising. And I mean, to an extent, sometimes it's worth doing that. You know, if you have a hill you really want to die on, if there's something that's worth that much to you, then that's fine. But it's not worth doing that with everything. And so we need to look at that. I mean, yeah. And to go back to the political game thing, it's also just more of an understanding about the machinations that are going on. You know, about just understanding exactly what it means to be a congressman or a congresswoman. Understanding exactly, you know, who do you have to talk to? And who do you have the ability to learn from? And who are all these people? And what do I expect from them? And, you know, whatever. And it's, you know, it pays to do your homework ahead of time. But if your homework is 15 years in the Senate, you already know a lot. You know, or you'll know a lot just from that. And if you're coming in as a greenhorn, you know, off of, you know, maybe a city council position or a mayorship even, you still probably don't know most of those people. And you certainly don't know what they're like in person. You never had the opportunity to do so, to learn, to know them, to meet them. to become their, you know, colleague, truly. And so, you know, when it comes to something like that, I mean, I'll always look at that side of the debate and go, you know, I don't know. I don't know. But is it worth getting new blood in there so that people are fighting not for themselves, but for their constituents and for the continuing legacy of, you know, what they stand for? Maybe. Yeah. But it also means that they're fighting more for the values of the people that are going to, you know, the people in that long line of whoever it is. You know, I think the other downside, not just the playing the game thing, is that then you're going to end up with people that are basically just throwaways by their own party. That they're there to push a certain agenda which is not determined by them, but it's determined by their party, because the party is just trying to play the long game. I mean, that's their job. I'm not dissing that. But you get less of a chance to stand up for yourself and stand up for your individual constituents if you're running as, you know, a Republican or a Democrat, if you're a senator and you only are going to be in there for 2 terms, or even 1 term. Or, you know, maybe 4 to coincide with presidential elections or something like that. For 4 terms as a senator. Senators get reelected. No, senators get reelected every... Yeah. So 4 terms would be 8 years, right? Right? Something like that. I don't know exactly how the election cycles go. I shouldn't I? But, oh well. So, yeah. Then you don't get the time to really think about your own stuff. I mean, you could, but the party won't really care that much about you. If you can get elected on your own merits and then stay there on your own merits, because think about who is voting you in. It's your people. You know, the people that you are there to represent. You know, in the case where you're a senator or a representative. You know, it's a very small, particularly with a representative, it's a very small swath of people. These are your group. These are the people that you are there to represent. You are there to represent their interests, and if they keep voting you back in, that's because you have supported their interests. If they didn't like you, you wouldn't get voted in again. And that's something that we all need to remember as voters, is that if we don't like somebody, you need to vote in your local elections. You need to vote all the way down to your municipality, to your town. You know, these things, they matter. There is a good reason to care about everyone who isn't the president. Of course, there's plenty of good reasons to care about the president too, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that don't write somebody off in an election just because it's not the guy on the top of the ballot, or girl, or whatever. You know, just because it's not the top ballot person. You need to vote down ballot. You need to look at the other people. They're just as important, if not sometimes even more important. Because it's just, you know, the president does, you know, he's the president, he does presidential things, but there are only so many presidential things that you do. You don't make the laws as the president, you just sign them into being or not. You don't, you know, you don't, well, you don't do a whole lot. You don't make the budgets as a president. You can suggest them, but you still need to get Congress to agree with you. It's, if you've got somebody in there as a congressperson that's fighting for you and you specifically, you know, that's what you should care about. The smaller the election, the narrower the group of people, and that means your voice means more in the smaller group, not less. It means more because you are a much larger proportion of that smaller group. The president has to watch out for the whole country. Donald Trump, he's got to look out for everybody, from the guy in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska, to the guy, you know, living up on 2nd Avenue, you know, in New York City. It's his job to pay attention and to care about all of that. So, you know, 'cause that's what being president of the United States means. You are president of the United States. All of it. But if you're a senator from, you know, from Arkansas, you get to care about half of Arkansas. That's it. That's not that big, comparatively. It really isn't. If you're, you know, a representative from District 13 in Pennsylvania, you only have to worry about what District 13 wants. And sure, you might, you know, you might vote along party lines because that's typically what you do, but when it comes down to brass tacks and those tight bills, or even the things that really do affect your people specifically, then you're going to vote for your people, because otherwise they will vote you out. So, remember, your local elections matter, your down ballot candidates matter, your senators, your representatives, they all matter. So, if you can vote, vote. And if you can't vote, just you wait. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm still putting driveways in. I'm just going in here. I'm sorry of all the... I mean, I'm not particularly sorry. I'm not going to lie and say, oh, I'm so sorry I did all this political talk. It is what it is. You know, it's something that's worth being talked about because it is always relevant. It's always relevant. Because politics, whether or not we want to play a hand in politics, politics plays a heavy hand in our lives. So, it pays to stay informed, and it pays to rock the vote. This is the Admiral. Stretching it out here. This is the Admiral, signing off.